Story 1. We made it through an onslaught by a Wendigo. I'm glad to know that other people have had these things happen to them too. I think it's kind of like group therapy, but in a really strange way. This isn't a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or anything. A long time ago, when I was just out of high school, my friends and I went camping. It was the final time we would see each other before college took us in different directions. We had intended to go deep into the national forest in the highlands and have fun for a few weeks. The people that came with me were: Preston was a Native American who had been practicing survivalist skills for many years. Jamie is a hunter and gun lover like myself who loves to go on adventures. Mark is a buddy of Preston's, but not mine. He used a lot of drugs and seemed okay, but I was constantly on edge when I was around him. We brought 2 tents, dried fruit, rice, jerky, camping gear, and alcohol with us. A Mini 14 gun, a shotgun called the Saiga 12, my Taurus Judge revolver, and Jamie's .357 revolver are both handguns. I drove my old BMW station wagon and stuffed all of this into it. We stopped at a parking lot, put our gear on our backs, and then went deep into the woods. The first day went by without any problems. Preston discovered a nice open space for us to stay in. We put down our things and set up the tents while Preston started a fire to cook. This wasn't an issue for me because I was always skilled at putting up tents. We had put up the fundamentals of camp in less than 20 minutes. I opened a drink and sat next to Preston, who had made a big fire. I smiled at him. "I'm going to miss you, man." I gave him a pat on the back. "Me too." "Let's enjoy this," he said. Jamie and Mark were still going on, looking around the place. I could have sworn I saw a pair of emerald eyes and antlers staring at me. In the days that followed, I would regret not asking Preston. That night, as we sat down to eat, I tried to forget. Campfire curry, a blend of curry spices, frozen chicken we brought and cooked, some veggies, and a small pot of rice. We ate all of our perishable food on the first night, and it was really good. Then we baked s'mores and cooked marshmallows, just like when we were kids. It was a lot of fun, that's for sure. If only it had lasted. I slept like a baby that night, and Preston, who I shared a tent with, didn't appear to mind at all. We broke camp the next morning and headed south toward a big river where we planned to spend a few nights by the water. Since we were in the middle of nowhere, I gave Preston my Mini 14 and took the Saiga 12 with me. Its 10-round magazine held both slugs and buckshot. Jamie had his .357, and I had my sidearm too. It felt like we walked for hours. We had to use GPS and compasses because it was foggy, cloudy, and there weren't many distinct markers. I could see the look on Preston's face as we drove south. He seemed apprehensive. "Hey man, what's up with you?" I asked him. He had me approach near and said, "I don't know, man, but I have a feeling that a bad sign is about to pass. Keep an eye on everyone. I'll pay attention to anything." We heard what seemed like a far-off whooping sound when he stated that. We all looked around. I could have sworn I saw something moving slowly behind us in the distance. I couldn't shoot it with my shotgun because it was too far away, so I pointed at it and instructed Preston to shoot. "Fire that thing." 3 rounds from the Mini 14 made the fragrance of freshly fired bullets fill my nose. Whatever it was got on all fours and ran away. "What was that?" Mark inquired, astonished. Preston cursed in his own tongue for a long time before eventually saying, "That, my friends, is something truly evil. We need to get to the river quickly." We ran for almost 30 minutes, but we had to slow down since we were carrying a lot of heavy stuff. Preston peered to the left and right, but he didn't see anything. We soon got to the flowing river, and the fog seemed to go away. Preston glanced about, shook his head, checked his GPS, and eventually replied, "We can get to the other side of the national forest by taking a hand tram a mile upstream. If we hurry, we can get there before lunch." What's going on, Preston? What was that? Jamie inquired, worried. I can't say for sure, but it's not good. I want to attempt to lose it across the tramway. Whatever that monster is, if it's anything like the legends I tell about my family, it won't be able to cross a river. We're going, that's it. Preston was the first to go up the river, staying close to the bank. In the end, we did discover it. A big automobile made of steel and wood hanging over a broad stretch of water. I went first and didn't spend any time going over. I watched the path on the other side as Jamie crossed next with some more stuff. Finally, Preston and Mark squeezed onto the tram and crossed. When I turned to go, I saw Preston pull out his Bowie knife and start cutting the rope that held up the tram. What the hell are you doing, man? That's property of the state, therefore that's a crime. I said, confused. We can't let that thing follow us. He cut the rope until it broke, and the tramcar dropped into the river below with a loud clang. I could have sworn I saw those green eyes again as we left and headed east. They were only observing us for a second. We set our camp in a clearing on the edge of a hill's broad crest. It afforded us fantastic vistas and vision, but more importantly, as Preston said, we can see anybody or anything coming. We're doing watch rotations, he added as he sat down to make the fire. I really am scared of that creature. I bet it's just a bear, Preston. There are too many stories about my family. Mark laughed out loud. He was Preston's friend, not mine, as I claimed before. After Preston made rice pudding for dinner, I took the second watch. I had no issue staying up. Then Jamie. I got up and chatted to him for a little. He was a little scared and said he wanted to go home. Yeah, I get what you mean, man. This is much too weird. Jamie told me that Mark took the last watch and that my shotgun was close to the tent in case he needed it. The next morning, Mark was gone. We asked Jamie right away, and his tail checked out. He spotted Mark awake and observing. We waited, and Preston lit the few remaining vapors. He also took out a tiny can of pine tar and started to make torches. Preston, what are they for? Jamie wanted to know. I'm sure we have a Wendigo. Preston answered. A Wendigo? What the hell is that? I answered. A demon that eats people, has green eyes, a deer skull for a head, and is thirsty for human blood. They're like skinwalkers, you know, as in the show True Blood. The TV program was popular back then. He told me. I was really horrified when I heard, so that grabbed Mark and ate him? We'll wait a few hours for Mark. Lock and load the firearms. Don't allow him go closer than 200 feet to the encampment. I'm going out for a while. You're insane, Preston. I said no. He whispered in my ear, ask me who my favorite sailor is when I get back. For the record, it's Saturn. After that, he walked up to Jamie and said something to him that I knew I wasn't allowed to hear. Then he turned back to us with 2 torches and his knife and said, Wendigo do not like fire. There are a lot of sticks and wood right there, so keep the fire burning for a few hours. I'll be back. Don't forget what I said to every one of you. Kill me if I can't answer it when I get back. I sat with Jamie, back to back, as he walked into the woods. I had my Mini 14 and he had my Saiga. We heard a lot of different sounds in the forest for hours. There were whooping noises, what sounded like Mark, and what I believed was the sound of a drum hitting far away. In the afternoon, we heard someone moving in the woods. It was Preston, with mud on his face and a homemade drum under his arm. He had just 1 torch remaining. When I pointed my rifle at him, he stopped short of the encampment. What's going on here, guys? Hello, it's me, Preston. What is your favorite character from Final Fantasy? Jamie asked. Squall, of course. Jamie put his pistol down. Which sailor do you like best? I asked in a calm and careful way. Of course, Saturn. I guess this implies Mark is still missing, right? He said. I put my rifle down and said, "Come on up, dude." And indeed, we heard whooping sounds but no indication. Preston looked away and said, "It's hunting us." I checked the tapes, and at one point my little serenade of tribal chanting made it come across to me. "How did you get out?" I asked. "I chased it with fire." "Remember, they're scared of it," he said. "Do guns hurt them?" I asked slowly. "It can hurt them, but you actually need fire or silver. As usual, we just have fire. We're going to set one of the tents on fire and dump some items. We're going light. We're going to the road. It's 35 miles to the east, but we can get there in 2 days. But we'll have to treble the number of night shifts we work. And if you see something that looks like Mark, he's dead." "I'm sure of it," Preston replied. At this moment, I was quite scared. The sickening thought that my concept may have killed everyone. I was in command. Today we'll walk 15 kilometers, and tomorrow we'll go 20. We will get a ride back to the vehicle. We'll throw away our trash as we go. Tomorrow morning, we'll set the tent on fire. Let's go now. We quickly packed what we could carry and burnt a lot of our things that we didn't need. We rushed about all afternoon and into the early evening, sprinting when we could and walking as fast as we could. The whooping sound still seemed to be following us from a distance. But when I looked back, I didn't see any antlers or green eyes. We finally discovered a clearing that was big enough, easy to see, and had sticks. We quickly grabbed firewood and set the camp, all remaining together. Dinner was cold jerky and dried fruit. Preston didn't want to draw attention to himself with scents, but he did make a few pine tar torches and put them at the edges of the area. We didn't say anything, but Preston and I took the first watch. Then Jamie and Preston, then Jamie and I. This went on every 2 hours till morning. We heard screams when the sun came up. Mark's voice sounded from the bushes, asking for aid. Preston shook his head and said, "It got him. We can't do anything to change it." We set fire to that tent and kept going all day. Today, though, I could see it. It didn't try to conceal till midday. The Wendigo stood nearly 7 feet tall. It had blackened limbs and 2 flashing green eyes placed within a deer skull with antlers. Soft sounds of whooping. It stayed away. I got out my handgun and pointed it at it from approximately 250 feet away. I shot it in the chest. It hardly moved. The monster turned around and looked at me. In his native language, Preston started yelling at it in a rude way. It halted, turned its head, and then answered him. I questioned him, "What the hell did he say to you?" I asked him what he did to Mark. He said, "Who is that?" Then Preston took my Mini 14 and shot at him many times. This horrible thing appeared to become angry. I shot him in the chest with my Saiga after that. It screamed in anguish and ran out into the woods. "I think we should run," I said to the group. We ran for a good 20 minutes, and then we saw a person in the distance in a clearing. Naked and dirty. "Hey guys, it's me. You have to take me back. I got away from that beast and have been fleeing from it for the last day." It was Mark. I aimed my Saiga at Mark. "Mark, what happened to your clothes?" "Yes, and if you're Mark, tell us the name of the school we went to," Preston stated. He aimed the gun toward his head. "Come on, boys, don't mess around. It's me. I'm cold, I'm hungry, and I want to go home." He said no. Jamie shot him in the leg with his gun. "Answer the fucking questions." Mark yelled in anguish. "Unless you want the next one to be your head," Jamie yelled. At that point, Mark's head turned to Jamie in a very strange way. I was so scared that I couldn't move because it seemed like Mark was twisting and screaming in strange ways. I shot again and again. All of the ammunition are still in the magazine. It just seemed like it was shredding the top skin. I recalled that Wendigo's to test fire when I put that on my back. I ran toward what used to be Mark with my lighter and a can of bug spray, showering it with the fire from my improvised flamethrower. Preston put 2 whole magazines into it as I torched it, and then he spilled the remainder of his pine tar on it. Jamie emptied his handgun. When it eventually stopped screaming and writhing, we were left with a body that was half Mark and half Wendigo. It was burned and cut apart. Everyone vomited up. Preston started to cut up the body and remarked, "I have to get rid of the body. This is the proper thing for me to do." Preston burnt and chopped up the body for an hour before taking out the heart. He put it in a plastic bag and then stuffed it into his coat. We had to drive for a couple more hours to get to the highway. As Jamie kept the hitchhiker's thumb out, Preston sat down and started to cry on the pavement. I sat next to him and said, "What are you going to do with the heart?" "I have to bring it to the reserve. My elders need to know that these things are still out there. We have to keep these people safe from these monsters. He made a fist and said, "I'll kill them all myself if I have to." For Mark. A kind farmer dropped by in the evening and let us ride his bed into town. After that, I paid for a cheap hotel room, and we all exhaled a sigh of relief. The next day, we went back to my car. Thank goodness it started, and we were able to leave the area around the forest without any trouble. For a few weeks following that, I didn't talk to Preston. He finally came to my place in the summer and asked my dad if he could stay the night. I was still living at home at the time. My dad did what I asked. Preston said that the elders were astonished and informed him they would get a group together to deal with it. They brought back the skulls of 2 Wendigos and 6 hearts. They also recovered pieces of Mark's t-shirt next to a mound of rotting body parts. Preston, Jamie, and I made a promise to each other that we would never tell anybody about the horrible things we saw. I only breached this promise now, years later, and only because we can fairly claim that this is behind us for now. If you hear whooping sounds and see green eyes and antlers, my recommendation is to escape or fight it with fire. It can hurt from guns, but only fire or silver can kill it. I hope that the horrible things go away someday, but I know in my heart that they won't. Stay careful, everyone. Story 2. We found a dead Wendigo on my grandfather's land. If any of you are reading this, why do you deal with cryptids? I think a lot of you do it for the thrill, not just the money. The rush. But where is the line? When does excitement turn into panic? I know that taking certain risks is good for the soul, but there are so many things that may go wrong in every circumstance. What do you do when you find the body of a cryptid you were seeking, cut up and ripped apart? When you suddenly realize that there's a bigger fish? My grandpa wasn't technically a monster hunter, but he was a crazy motherfucker. He once killed a grizzly bear with just a crossbow, damp mud and leaves, and his wits. Since then, he has had its head placed over the fireplace at his woodland house. I don't know how long he's loved the outdoors, but I do know that he became bored of the city long before he retired from his work as a city engineer. He has resided in an ancient house in the northwestern part of the Olympic National Forest, which is about 40 miles from the park proper in Washington state. I can only guess how lonely it must have been for him to live out there alone, yet he never appeared to mind. Martin is a person I met in college, and we've been excellent friends over the past several years. He had the same fire in his eyes as my grandpa when it came to the outdoors. He constantly wanted me to go camping, fishing, hunting, or anything else. It was an easy decision to take him to see my grandpa. To be honest, I was afraid they would get along too well and Martin would never come back with me. In the end, it didn't matter because that day left both of us with a deep fear of the woods. This time, Martin was really excited. He was virtually shaking in the passenger seat of my Jeep. Grandpa promised to teach him how to peel and use pelts on their last trip. Martin often talked about how nice it would be to sit in front of a blazing fire with a big deerskin rug underneath it. I just wanted to see how my grandpa was doing. I was frightened since he hadn't answered my calls for a week. We had an issue right away on the lengthy gravel road to my grandpa's house. As I rounded the corner, I slammed on the brakes when I saw a lot of trees that had fallen over the road. Damn! What went wrong here? Martin yelled, "There haven't been any storms lately, have there?" I sat with my hands on the driving wheel at 10 and 2, speechless. No. The weather has been pretty clear around here since March. Strange. I turned off the engine and got out of the vehicle. The only noises were the leaves rustling in the spring air. White sounds from nature. We were a little more than 2 miles from the home, which is an easy distance to walk. We didn't have to carry much of our personal stuff because Grandpa had enough. Our baggage were light. I had my phone, a torch, some water, some extra clothing, and my utilitarian watch on my wrist. My goal was to go up to Grandpa's house and then come back down in his vehicle to cut up the logs that had fallen with a chainsaw. We felt it would be more enjoyable to go through the woods next to the track. After all, a lengthy dirt road only equals boredom. We hurried down the left side of the hill and started our journey, keeping an eye on the road to make sure we were going the right way. The scent reached us only a few minutes later. Rotten flesh. Animals in the woods die all the time, so this wasn't a big surprise. That portion of my brain that is hardwired to hate smells still hated it. Something's rotting out here, I replied. I can't imagine how it would smell in the summer. Martin made a little gagging sound but consented. As we walked on, the smell got worse and worse. It was at its worst when I almost fell on something pointy on the ground. At first, I assumed it was a bunch of branches, but that idea immediately went away when I saw their pale, porcelain reflections. There was a headless stag's head standing in front of us. But it was incorrect. The teeth were overly long, and the bone in its face was showing. I could tell it was new because of the thick black blood that dripped from its lips and neck, even though it smelled bad. Martin said, "Damn, that's creepy. You believe a bear did this? There's only black bears here, right? I don't think they could accomplish something like this. Could it be a cougar? I have no idea. But I've never seen one cut off a stag's head like this." A jagged line of blood on the ground caught my attention and led us forward. I kept looking at it till it stopped at the stag's horrible corpse. From a distance, it seemed like it had 4 legs, but as we got closer, I realized I was quite wrong. The body belonged to a monster. Tall, yet thin and bony. Long, pointed claws that looked like kitchen knives are laying on the ground. And everything of it was covered in patches of black, rough fur. "Is it bad?" Martin cried out, coming up behind me to see what was going on. He stopped and was quiet, just like I was. There was no way to put into words how beautiful that was. I'd heard the ancient stories about the scary things that lived deep in the woods, but I'd never seen them with my own eyes. It was motionless, like the dead leaves that had fallen on it. It appeared like it had been crushed and smashed, with what seemed like huge and deep holes in it. Martin was able to speak up. "Is that?" But before he could say anything further, a loud crack pierced the silence. The sound of a branch breaking. My back went straight up. I knew better, yet my head slowly turned in the direction of the disturbance. When I saw a big, dark form out of the corner of my eye, I turned to confront it. I saw something for a little while. Big, lengthy arms and legs covered with hair that looked like pine bark. But the picture was gone as soon as I turned. The rising fear made me want to shout. I searched everywhere, but there was nothing there. "Kel, what's going on? Is the cougar still here?" Martin murmured. "No, it's nothing. Let's keep going. We can talk about this with my grandpa later. But the cat could still be hanging around somewhere. We shouldn't stay in the same spot for too long." Before I left, I took a couple images of the mutilated body on my phone, focusing in on the head without going back to get a better viewpoint. I knew that going back, even for a short time, would be a big mistake. We kept going quickly, as if we didn't see the heavy motions amongst the trees close. Large creatures will always give away where they are going, but they break twigs, not whole branches. Still, the movements didn't sound clunky at all. No, they sounded like they were planned, like a stalking predator. I tried hard to ignore them, but I kept looking to the sides and behind me. I don't sure if I wanted to see anything or nothing. But there was no one else in the woods surrounding us. "Hey, Kel, we should go up onto the road for a bit if there's a mountain lion around here. If we need to, it will be easier to bolt. I agreed, and we turned right and went up the incline on the side of the road. I knew deep down that whatever was out there, it wasn't a large cat. We just told ourselves that because we didn't want to talk about monsters that were suddenly very real to us. As we proceeded down the road, the woodland became quiet. But that didn't make me feel better at all. If the woods are calm, there are predators about. A lot of people who love the outdoors know about this notion. Seeing a herd of deer standing in the trail made me feel a little better. They turned their heads to look at us, but they didn't appear too bothered by us being there. At the same moment, I felt like I was exposed and weak, like a hard lump in my stomach. As we came closer, they began to move on, leaving the road and going into the woods. One of the deer stayed where it was. No, it wasn't frozen, but it was tight. It jerked and whined as it began to lift off the ground, as if it had no weight. It occurred so fast. It stopped screaming when its limbs were broken and crushed, and terrible wounds opened up all over its body. And suddenly it stood up, as if it had been there the whole time. It was a horrible dream. It was huge, so big that it could have piled 2 elephants on top of each other. It was slumped down and rested on forelimbs that were too long and thick, with claws that looked like sloth claws. The body was long too, with shorter legs at the end. The knees were bent the other way, and the feet were supported by spurs. The head that lolled on top of an extended neck seemed like a strange mix between a horse and a crocodile. There were hollow pits where its eyes should have been, and the skin surrounding its mouth was split, showing teeth that were horrifically uneven and malformed and stuck out at strange angles. The deep cuts on its head and flanks glimmered in the fading light. There was no doubt that the deceased animal had fought. But it could never have been enough. As we stood there, shocked, it looked back at us, and the only actual movement was the rib-like appendages on its bottom, which made the deer into a ripped sack of flesh and bone. The unfortunate animal seemed like it was dying right in front of our eyes as the jagged ribs dug further into its body, like a juice box that had all its liquid squeezed out. At that point, we were members of the group. Paralyzed. Some had already ran away, while others stood still like statues in front of this beast. Then we smelled something else. It wasn't the scent of death as before, but it was just as bad. Like wet dirt, sulfur, methane, and dead fish. As the beast's jaws opened, wisps of gas turned into thick, billowing vapors that rose into the night sky. The suspense was broken as the deer carcass hit the ground with a thump. The other deer ran away into the forest, and the beast turned its head in their direction. Its head was messed up, it flopped around awkwardly when it rotated. I stepped back as it let out a deep, guttural rattle, and then it ran off after the herd, its matted hair waving wildly. It broke a tree as it went, but it didn't care at all. We didn't say anything till its deafening gallops vanished into the swiftly darkening darkness. What the fuck, what the fuck? What was that thing? Martin stammered, his eyes filling with tears. I don't know, man, but we need to get to the house before dark. I don't think we have much of a chance of getting away in the dark. Are you out of your mind? We need to go back. I want to get as far away from this location as I can. What about my grandpa? We can't just leave him here with that. Martin didn't look at me, but he didn't spend any time disputing and started jogging along the road. We were now more than halfway to my grandpa's house, and if we wanted to get away, it would be easy for the beast to smash the Jeep off-road. The only light in the distance appeared like the gates of paradise. It gave off a sense of safety. But I knew we couldn't stay out in the open, where everyone might see us. I looked at my utility watch and made a mental note of the house's direction, north-northeast. Then I grabbed Martin by the arm and led him off the left side of the road. The steepening ground and thickening vegetation showed how harsh nature can be. The light in the home went out swiftly, and we were left with only our sense of direction to find our way. For a scary moment, I feared we might have gone off course, but then I noticed a column of smoke above the faraway forest canopy that could only have come from my grandpa's chimney. Come on, this way. As we got closer, we couldn't see any light. He could have already gone to bed. Because he wasn't talking to me, I could only assume. We climbed up to the top of a hill that sloped down to a level area. But there was no home. There was a plume of smoke, but no source. It started in the air with nothing. The place where the smoke was coming from swung around in the air as we stopped to look. When I smelled the organic smell, it all made sense to me. It was there again, gazing right at us, with heavy smoke coming out of its lips. This time, though, I saw something else. The moon was now in the sky, and its light shone off of something under the creature's head. There were 6 black orbs on its neck, 3 on each side. They were glossy like obsidian. They moved about quickly and on their own, and I realized right away what they were. Eyes. What kind of horrible thing was this? That structure that looks like a rib cage must have been its eyes, and if it ate the deer with that structure, then it must have had a fake head. A way to get your mind off things, maybe? It made sense that its head flopped around like it was dead since the beast moved in a strange way. I blinked a lot and then looked down at my watch. To the east. We were told wrong. It had gone around us to wait. I grabbed Martin's shoulder and hauled him in the direction we were supposed to be going in a frenzied race for our lives. The beast started to move, its ribs rippling as it let out another rumbling trill. Martin stared at me with a puzzled gaze. Hey, man, what are you up to? There is nothing there. Shut up. Just run as quickly as you can right now. Don't stop for anything. The hefty thumps and loud cracks of trees being smashed matched the hammering of our feet. I was too scared to look behind me because I thought that even the smallest change in speed would be death. Look. I had a hard time understanding what Martin was saying until I saw the golden light between the tree trunks. We were just a few hundred yards away, but I was astonished that the thing hadn't come up to us yet. Even the trees in its route couldn't stop it. It was almost caught up. I could feel the air pressure from its huge bulk as it charged through the woods behind it. So close that I could feel its claws ripping my body apart at any minute. A blessing in disguise. A thick clump of ancient oak trees was coming up on our left. I veered toward them, jumping through the gaps between the trunks that were just big enough for us to fit through. I fell to the ground and rolled to the side. There wasn't even time to be stunned when a huge smash came from where we had just been. I hurried backwards, trying to see a big arm slipping through the space. It was thick, although not as thick as the oaks. The claws tapped around, looking for our weak bodies without knowing where they were. Go! I yelled, and we both jumped up and ran toward the light. The sounds got quieter as we ran. Was it shocked, or did it still assume we were behind those trees? I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was being inside. We came to a stop with a loud bang as gravel hit the front of the home. I knocked on the door, and when they didn't answer, I started banging on it. After what was surely the 10th knock, my fist hit nothing but air, and I staggered through the now open door. I looked up to see my grandpa looking at me. His eyes were crazy. He didn't look like himself. He looked at Martin behind me and then at Martin behind him. His pupils shrank in reaction to whatever he saw out there. He said, "Hurry, boys, get inside." We walked in, and he began to lock the door, but he stopped. No use," he said, as his hand fell limp. He was right. No matter how well we protected our house, the beast would still come. We silently followed him to a hatch on the floor that wasn't covered. "What's this, Mr. Barnett?" Martin inquired about the hatch. "Huh? Oh, this is my old wine cellar." Before Martin could ask further, he was cut off. "Hey, son, climb down the ladder first. Once we're safe, you may ask your questions." He pushed on a handle to open the hatch, which revealed a strong wooden ladder that headed down into a dark area. We climbed down its dusty rungs one at a time until we reached the chilly concrete floor at the bottom. Grandpa came last. He pulled a big blanket over the open hatch and then closed and locked it. "I guess you saw the thing, right?" "Jesus, Granddad, we barely made it out," I said, still out of breath from running away. "Unharmed?" "Yeah, mostly, except for a few scratches." "Good. He walked up to a container that was upside down and sat down on it. Martin and I stared at each other, then back at him. Well? Martin remarked, "You seem to know what we were dealing with, so what the hell is it?" Grandpa gave Martin a look of disdain, but then he immediately changed his mind and understood. "I'd check your manners, boy, but this isn't the right time." He gave out a weary moan, dropped his head, then took a quick breath and looked back up at us. "I've only seen it once before, while I was in college. Some Danish pals in my class told me I should come visit them and go backpacking in their native country. Denmark definitely does have beautiful scenery. Peaks rising out of the trees, you know." I cleared my throat to bring him back to reality before he could get lost in a fantasy. "Oh, right. We were quite far into the woods when it happened. We all felt scared because we feared something was following us. Maybe an elk or anything large. But we never saw anything, we simply heard it. And then, oh my gosh, one of the females in front of me started to, well, float. I don't know, she was simply lifting off the ground, held by something. It made a mess of her. Squeezed her like a meatball. I noticed it then. Curved bones wrapped around her and stabbed deep. I won't ever forget how it looked, it's like a blot on my psyche." "We saw the same thing," Martin said, "but it was a deer. Looked like it sucked everything out of it when it was done. Yeah, I can't say I know how it works. You can only see it if you know it's there? If it's there?" We rushed as fast as we could back down the route, but it appeared like we lost it. There was a horrible smell the whole time, like eggs and dirt. Ugh. We ended up back in the town where we had begun, went straight to the police station, and told them what happened. It looks like all they discovered was a small bit of flesh, like a piece of thigh or something. Later on, one of the other guys told me the story. He talked about the smoke we observed coming from the woods when we were back in town. There was an ancient Danish tale that people had seen columns of smoke in the woods throughout history, and most of those who went to view them never came back. They claimed it would move, but not like a fire spreading, it would move like it was wandering around. "Wow, that's a terrible story, Grandpa," I responded. "But it doesn't help us figure out what it is. We already know what you just told us." "Well," he said, "I'm sure it has a lot of names since it can show up anywhere. But I only heard it named the Skorstender. If I recall well, it means chimney beast. That makes sense. We believed we were seeing smoke coming from your chimney, but it took us straight there." "Kel," Grandpa moaned, "this house doesn't even have a chimney." Martin stared at me and laughed, then looked back at Grandpa. "So it draws people in like that?" "Yes, but I don't think it means to. I'm going to guess that it began up after it ate the deer and the fumes came out." "Yeah," I said. "That creature, whatever it is, isn't from here. I don't think it's from anywhere on Earth. It consumes something, and then it starts to smoke. I assume it's waste from digestion." "So, gas from poop?" Martin laughed. Even in the worst of times, he always found a way to make things a bit better. I stared up at the black and white ceiling above us and thought about what Grandpa had said. I remembered how it all began and took out my phone to look at my pictures. "We found this when we started walking to your house. I got a feeling, but do you know what it is?" Grandpa peered at the screen and then snatched it from me. I answered, "Scroll to the right, that's just the head." The slow tapping of his finger on the screen were the only thing that broke his quiet attention. His eyes lighted up with recognition, and his head bobbed up and down. "Well, I'll be damned. Is it Wendigo?" "Why?" I asked. "Yeah. I have to say, I've never seen one of them around here before, but then again, I wasn't looking for one. I don't think you need it, but keep it in mind so you know what this beast can do." I put my phone back in my pocket, sighed, and let my chin sink into my palms. If I found out about this kind of monster in any other scenario, I would be startled. But not now. Martin responded, "This is all great, Mr. Barnett," with a shaky voice, "but it doesn't help us. What are we going to do? What can we do?" "I don't know." "Well, I have a dumb notion, but I'm just trying to figure it out. Anything but sitting here and waiting to die, Martin said, looking off into space. Anything. Grandpa gazed up at the basement window, which was the only place in the room that got any natural light, what little there was. Well, I was checking my traps about 600 or 700 yards east of here, in the woods. But when I got there was this smudge. I don't know what to name it, but that's the closest way I can explain how it appeared. It was like, when I looked at it, I couldn't figure out what I was seeing. After a time, it hurt my eyes. I've never seen anything like that. After then, I started to see the scorestender, so. He stopped talking, as if he couldn't find the words to say. So what? I pushed, leaning forward in excitement. Again, this is just a hunch, but I think that's where it originated from. I threw a rock into it when I was there, but I didn't hear it strike the ground. It seemed like it went somewhere else. All we have to do is lead it back there and get it to go back in. Hold on, I said, shouldn't we call someone? Cops? The stupid army? What do you think will happen to the cops when they get here? What can a chief and a rookie in one police car do to stop it? And good luck getting the U.S. military to send out Marines. You'd be lucky if they thought it was a joke. I stopped my tongue and let Grandpa finish his offer. Either the beast goes away, or we perish. I'm not even going to talk about trying to get away. You saw what it did to the trees. It might work, but it's better at that than we are, and I don't want any of you to die. His final comment made me shiver. He hadn't stated anything directly, but I was starting to see what he meant. Grandpa, you. Don't worry about me, kid. I have something, but you have to pay close attention. You both. We both focused all of our attention on him. I wanted to hear his proposal, but I sincerely hoped it would go a different direction than what I was imagining. First things first, I want to make this clear. I'm going alone, and you guys need to stay put and do what I say. My heart sank into the cold, hard sea of sadness. Are you out of your mind? No, I have to go with you. Grandpa cut me off and told me to be quiet. As I say, he told them. I knew he was correct, but I couldn't help but fight against the concept since I was sad. Okay, I'm going to phone you when I'm a little bit away. You need to pick up the phone and stay on the line with me. You need to pay close attention to my voice. For the following step, I need both of you to be bold. Please make as much noise as you can. Martin's eyes were big with horror. Won't that just get us killed? I haven't finished yet. That's only till I call you. Okay, when I do, you shut up and hide in the deepest part of this cellar. I was out of breath and my forehead was covered in chilly beads of perspiration, but I closed my eyes and calmed down. Why yeah, okay. I'll start once we're connected. A single muffled thump from above made us all quiet. It was so loud that the ceiling sprayed cement dust down on us. Then there was another thud. And another one. And one more. When I heard a loud crash from above, followed by the sound of rubble falling, I slid from my perch in horror. The regular thuds got closer and louder until the only sound was the floors creaking under the weight. I looked at Grandpa, and he looked at me and put a finger to his lips. I nodded and then carefully turned to the door to the basement. The beast was doing everything it could to be quiet. As I watched the hatch bend, I let out a little moan. The house rocked with a tremendous crash, and then there was nothing. I could hear the beast's ticking snarl in the quiet. It was playing with us. They were trying to trick us into thinking we had been caught so we would panic and try to get away. Its intellect scared me a lot more than how ugly it looked. It tried this bait a few more times, then became angry and huffed. The loud creaks faded away until we couldn't hear them anymore, save for the sound of a tree falling someplace outside. I rose up, ready to put this plan into action, when someone grabbed my arms and pulled me back down. My eyes met my grandpa's, who was staring at me with a wide-eyed frown. "Sit down," he said in a low voice. "Not yet. That bastard is smart. It could be waiting at the edge of the trees for us to come out." We three sat quietly, listening for any sound that could show it was there. After a long wait, Grandpa finally got up and crept up to the ladder. He climbed it, grimacing at the creaking of a rung, and then gently pulled the hatch open. The rug that had been above was worn out, and pieces of it were falling down into the now open area. He looked out from all sides to make sure we were secure. When he pushed his hand up, something that sounded like a shattered tile moved and fell to the floor above us. Grandpa stood still, clearly getting tense. Creak. Grandpa had to do something when he heard the hefty stride and then the guttural rattle. He pulled himself down the ladder and rolled and tucked himself to the floor just before the hatch slammed shut with a lot of force, breaking it and bending the hinges. Grandpa sprang up, his heart racing faster than his age. He looked around the floor in a panic before staring up at us with fresh purpose. Oh, crap. Plans have changed. Martin, get it off its game. Make some noise. Kel, help me get to the window. Martin's mouth dropped wide, and he started to breathe faster. Fuck. He yelled, and pressed his fingers into his temples, but to his credit, he turned toward the hatch and made a lot of noise right away. Come and get it, you bastard. You hideous piece of trash. While Martin was busy cursing the chimney beast, Grandpa and I rushed to the window and knelt down, locking our fingers together to make a footing for him to put his foot on. 1, 2, 3. I lifted him up and held my position as he unlocked the window and swung it open. I was already fatigued from racing away, and Grandfather was heavier than I thought. I dragged him up higher till he was out past the waist, and then he pulled himself out into the foggy night. As he turned around, I kept my eyes on him and fought the impulse to peek as I heard claws tearing away hungrily. Okay, I'll call in a minute, he said, panting. When I do, tell Martin to zip. I adore you, buddy. You too, Granddad. My words grabbed hold of him, waking up a long-buried impulse that made him slam his heels into the forest floor and run into the woods, where he faded away until he was one with the dark. When Martin screamed, I was grounded again. I turned to see him backing away from the spindly claws that were reaching through the jagged hole that used to be the hatch. As he shuffled back, a large trail of blood spilled from him. It was the same red blood that covered one of the giant claws. It got me. It hurts. He sobbed and turned over, then crawled on his belly toward me. I ran over and pulled him as far away as I could, but as I let him, he fell on the floor in shock. His leg was a tangle of shiny, exposed skin and bone, cut through like heated butter. His mouth was half open, but he didn't say anything, so I quickly made a lot of noise in his place. No matter how hard I tried to sound loud, I ended up whimpering. The beast's arm had nearly reached the other side of the room, but it kept slithering through the shattered opening, its claws making a tick-tick-tick noise as it looked for our flesh. As I backed up into the farthest corner with Martin, the huge hand got closer. Slowly, and with much pain. I only knew about the call when my jacket pocket vibrated. It seemed like obeying my grandpa's call would somehow keep me safe. My hand flew into my pocket and took out the phone. I fumbled with the touch screen and picked it up. Granddad? It's so close, it's going to get us. Please do something, I cried into my phone. A thunderous snap boomed through the night and then the phone instead of a response. The beast's arm jerked back, stopped for a second, and then it tore out of the basement, scattering pieces of wood all over the floor. I knew the sound, even though it was basic. His Blackhawk. He had brought it with him. I don't know when he got it, he could have had it with him the whole time. Out the windshield, I watched the huge shape slam into the trees at speeds rivaling my Jeep in fifth. When I heard Grandpa suddenly start yelling on the phone, I startled. The words were hard to make out since they mixed in with the noises of people moving around. I took off my jacket and then my t-shirt, which I wrapped firmly over Martin's upper calf like a tourniquet. Hey, Kel, Grandpa said on the phone in a hollow, tinny voice. Make sure you keep up your aerobics. Gah, it sure as hell doesn't get easier as the years go on. I put out a weak laugh and said, I will. I want to go hiking through these forests with you, camping, and living off of what we catch. I know you do. Oh God, I do too, he whispered, holding back tears. You need to be strong for your ma, okay? There is no way I'm getting out this time. But you two are. I lost it then, with heavy torrents of water running down my cheeks. I'll miss you. Thank you very much, Granddad. Yes, but we had some nice times. Isn't it amazing? I really did. And, well, this is a pretty cool way to die, right? I felt a strange sense of comfort rise up inside me, nearly bursting through the tears. Yeah. Okay, I'm here. The mark. I don't know what I'll find through there. I could hear the beast getting closer on the call, along with its clicks and rattles. I'm going in. But please promise me one thing. Anything, Grandpa. Hey. You be good, youngster, and make my daughter proud. That's it. The phone speaker made a strange noise, like a stone sliding across a frozen lake, and then there was a splash that appeared to stop all audio. When a voice that sounded like it was shaking spoke through the phone, the dead quiet was shattered. What the? Where are you? I shouted, begging him to give me any little bit of information he could. I don't know. I guess I'm in a pipe. Some sort of tube made of glass. I can see everything that's outside. It's all there, all at once. There are a lot more of these tubes, and they are branching and separating, but... As he talked, the connection became weaker and weaker, making my ears vibrate and shake. I'm going down this tunnel now, and there's the main one, but it's massive. Huge, oh my God. No, I don't think it's the center. In the distance, there are so many of them. What the heck is this place? I couldn't think of anything to say since my head was so tired. I just listened, and I was almost as perplexed as he was. Streams of through some of them, and the dash. A huge splash cut him off, but at this point the auditory quality made it sound more like a roar. I could only hear him whimpering till the hissing trill creeped back beneath my skin. It mixed in with the sound problems. But then I heard something I never could have imagined, especially after what I had witnessed. It seemed like the thing was stuttering and clearing its throat as it spoke, CKCKCKKRRR. SSSSS. S Ra CKCK. Xaltid BRR. Ariadith. It TTS flow shows us, CKCKCK, the road. It said something. The horrible, otherworldly beast had spoken. Its statements were startling, like it was repeating what someone taught it to say, and it made animal-like clicks and hisses. Grandpa yelled, but the call broke connection totally and made a high-pitched sine wave sound. My hand let go on its own, and the phone fell to the floor with a loud bang. When I knelt down to get it, all I saw when I touched the home button was my home screen. The call didn't go through. I looked down at Martin. He was unconscious but still alive. The bleeding had stopped, but he needed help right away. Still, I slid to the ground with my back against the cold concrete wall and resolved to wait till morning. I was sure that Grandpa's idea would work, but I was still a little hesitant. The adrenaline was starting to wear off. My arms and legs hurt, and my head hurt. I tried to fight my eyelids, but they seemed like they were being pulled down by heavy weights. All the light went out, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, my face was hot and there was a red-orange haze. I opened my eyes and grimaced when the sun's rays came through the broken basement hatch and hit my face. Any thoughts of a simple nightmare were dashed. Martin. I turned over on my side and saw him lying a few feet away. Thank God he was still alive. The blood on his left leg was dried and crusted over, yet a little bit of it still came out of his broken limb. I decided to let him sleep while I went to the broken ladder and climbed up what was left of its rungs and inside the home, or what was left of it, at least. Complete destruction. I don't want to be dramatic when I state that much of the front of the home was gone. Wooden beams stuck out from mounds of dust and rubble, yet all was quiet. Birds sang amid the forests and ruins, unlike the day before. I remember learning that creatures in the forest would be quiet when a predator was around, but I didn't notice until their voices came back. Still, little goosebumps ran up and down my spine. I felt protected, but I had also felt safe with Grandpa in the basement until the attack. There was no smoke rising from any place along the tree lane, and there was no smell that made me sick, yet I couldn't escape it. I spent some time digging around in the back part of the home that was still standing. I discovered the keys to Grandpa's pickup faster than I thought I would. They were in the kitchen counter. I almost jumped down into the old wine cellar, but then I slowed myself and shook Martin till he woke up. He was tired and didn't know what to do. "Don't worry, dude. I'm going to take you home." I put his left arm around my shoulder and helped him up the ladder. It was hard to get him out, but I succeeded, and we limped through the debris to the vehicle. I was going too quickly, so I swerved and slammed on the brakes when I saw the fallen tree trunks virtually out of nowhere. The shock startled Martin, and the agony in his leg made him pay attention. I said I was sorry, but I didn't waste any more time getting out and assisting Martin get down from his seat. The smell of death was heavier in the air, and the Wendigo body was rotting close. It reminded me of the night before, when I was terrified and paranoid, and that feeling got worse as I walked the short distance from the truck to my Jeep. I felt naked and vulnerable. Even with Martin's injuries, we got through the woods and into my vehicle swiftly. Still, I could feel my chest pulse because my heart was beating so rapidly. After a rough three-point bend, the wheels slid, throwing up dust before we sped down the course. We drove till we got to the tiny police station. I jumped out of the car and ran through the double doors. Looking back, that was perhaps a reckless thing to do, but my mind was elsewhere. First, I had them call an ambulance for my friend, and then I told them about a bad animal assault. When someone asked me what attacked us, I said cougar. The officer groaned, and I told him what I knew. Our attacker took Grandpa away. Soon later, an ambulance came to get Martin. The EMTs were clearly shocked by the cut, yet they still helped him. He had lost a lot of blood, but they immediately got him stabilized at the next hospital, where he stayed for a week. Of course, a search team came together to hunt for Grandpa, but they didn't find anything. They asked me about the condition of his residence, but I suppose the tears in my eyes were the greatest defense I could have had. There are no burn traces on the rubble to show that explosives were used. This all happened a few years ago, and I've made it through the phases of grieving without losing my mind. I want to say that my grandfather lives on in my memories, but that's not quite right. I still remember him, our talks, our trips, the fragrance of his fireplace, and all that. But no matter how hard I try, I can't recall what he looked like. In other words, in whatever images I still have, there is simply a little smudge where he used to be. I don't know where he ended up, maybe in a huge network of tubes, but I have a strong feeling that his cemetery is somewhere else, in a realm that isn't our planet. I'm always thankful for his sacrifice, but I can't help but think that it just spared our lives from the scorestender. Are there more of these, or can it possibly go to another place? My grandpa would know the answers, but, yes. Just in case, if you're out in the woods and see a constant stream of smoke coming from the trees, or simply smell the smell of digesting, it's advisable to call off the event. Once it gets to you, I just hope you're as lucky as we were the day my grandpa died. Story 3. I work as a psychologist. My patient has Wendigo psychosis. For months, John had been my patient. I couldn't use official DSM codes to classify him. But it seemed like he had what is called Wendigo psychosis. At the time of my first evaluation, there was no concrete evidence that he had eaten human flesh, but I could tell it was a big deal for him, and I thought he could have been behind a few recent gruesome incidents. One day, John said to me, "I'm just looking at the art in your office." He smiled, showing me the teeth he had filed down to sharp points. "There's so much red. I wonder whether you and I are the same." I gulped with a lot of worry. But I couldn't tell the police about his Wendigo psychosis because they would think I was just as insane as he was. Even if he has mentioned that his biggest ambition is to eat a human over the course of 3 days, I can't call him a cannibal. There was no evidence. "So much red," John said again. "Like a sea of blood flowing into your kitchen." Again, he smiled, seeming even more shaky. "John, this needs to end. There isn't any concrete proof that you're connected to the killings right now, but if you keep devouring people, your deeds will catch up to you. You haven't told me yet. Not enough proof. No, I think it's because you like me. You really like me, David Morrison. Why? Why would I want to be with someone like you? I can't prove it, but I know you killed someone. Not just that, a monster. John put a hand on his heart in awe. Do you really think that about me? Yes, I do. John, I'd like to talk about your parents. A few minutes later, my session with him was over. I went to the park to enjoy the summer weather before going home. I was alone in the house since my wife was on a business trip. I opened the front door and went inside. I turned on the TV. I wanted to change the channel when Hannibal came on, but I didn't. I don't know why, but I had gotten interested in monsters. I shook my head for some reason. It was evident why. John. I placed a chicken filled with carrots and onions in the oven for dinner. I went down to the basement to conduct some late spring cleaning while stuff was cooking. I turned on the light and looked at the messy mound of boxes. Some of the cocoons had a hard time hanging from the ceiling. Their inner cores were human, and they were so weak from neuroses or terrible experiences in their lives that they were prepared to go to a lonely psychologist's house for free therapy. I answered, "This is better for you." "And you said I was a monster," John said regarding the silk cocoon. I turned around and saw John's sharp fangs and blood-red eyes. He looked like a hunting dog with drooping eyes. "Did you come to eat me, John?" John thought about it for a while, then shook his head. "No. I'm here to learn from you. From the master. You clearly have a great approach to trap your victims. Teach me." So I showed John how I made a spider web with my own hands. At first, I was scared he would devour me, and even though he looked at me with those greedy, blood-red eyes, he departed with a silk cocoon over his left shoulder. Later, the Wendigo assured me that he could give me the hunger, the fire in my stomach that would show me the way to my soul. I asked him who had sent him. He said John did, and that was because he was so thankful for the bundle of human flesh I gave him. The Wendigo murmured, "A gift for a gift," and then it vanished into the dark cellar, leaving me alone with my thoughts.